Okay, here we go. This is going to be House of the Dead, Ninja, 1 to 200. We are just going to focus on getting the clear. No scoring stuff, no crazy stuff. So, floor 1. What do we need to do? We need to get kills. 1 to 10, the only thing that you really care about is making sure, in my opinion, to get to about 20, 21, somewhere around there. Just so that you're slightly higher level than the boss. That's like really the only thing that matters. So let's see. We've got a few more enemies. Traps can be kind of bad here. Well, not bad, but just annoying. So just be aware. Can't really have any control of dodging traps yet, because we need to go for those enemies. And I believe your throwing dagger, yes, 15. Just like it is for every melee. So we got, until we're level 15, we're gonna be taking a little bit of risk. You can check these if you want. The silvers, it'll slightly, you know, give you an extra chance, I guess, you know, not chance, but gives you extra points, 100 point per chest. So if you're going for score, that's something that you can do. We will get these respawns because they are right next to us, so we might as well. If you are not 99.99 on your arm and armor, I would recommend going for the silvers until you are. But you can easily clear this run without ever checking a single silver, as long as your max Aether pool. Sometimes it can be beneficial, but we're not there yet. If you want, you could steal right away. Okay, we're just gonna be patient, heal. You could steal right away. I typically don't really, if all I care about is going for a clear, I'm not gonna really use a steal yet. Main reason being, I know I'm not gonna do anything risky, but if you're unsure, you know, if it's your first time in here or whatever, just go ahead and use the steal. You're gonna get plenty, so there's no reason to hoard them. I just know that for me personally, I'm not going to do anything that will put me in a spot where I have to have steel on. Which is a main thing for the melee DPS run in general, in my opinion. If you'd like to increase the odds of you clearing, you want to reduce your reliance on steel as much as you can, which means you're only going to use steel when you absolutely need it. But when you're learning, there's a very, I would say, strong argument to just use steel anytime you are slightly concerned about survival, because getting experience and learning the content is more important than hoarding palms early on. So, and as you saw, went for more respawns. You just want to get those levels. Our first benchmark is 15, so we have our ranged attack, and then after that it's going to be about 20. You can do a ranged pull with feint. It's something that you'll do on monk a lot, but on every other melee, you're going to get your ranged attack at 15, so there's no real reason to sweat it. Could go over enemy aggro types in here, but again, it's just, as long as you're, you know, you're going to try to kill everything, so I don't really recommend skipping enemies here. Like if they're sound or whatever, just fight them. Just fight every single enemy here. within reason. So I know most people don't, you know, find this part of the run particularly interesting, so... Oh, enervation. So, enervation, we can read the tooltip, you can see it here, or here, either way. But damage dealt is reduced, damage taken is increased. So this can actually kind of turn the tides for a battle you might be fighting. Like if you step on an enervation, especially because its duration is so long, witching might not be the answer. Maybe it is. Like if you think that you can kill something, maybe witching is the answer. But if you step on an enervation on a tough fight, it might necessitate using potentially a steal, or maybe a steal and a witching, because that extra damage taken is pretty noticeable. I don't actually know the exact percentage on it, but it's definitely noticeable. Okay, here's our patrol. I will eventually use my strength. Actually, let's see. I'm still kind of destroying enemies, so I'm gonna hold on to my strength for just a little bit. Oh, I just realized I have the wrong HUD. There we go. Okay, so I'm actually gonna take this macro off as well. There we go. In general, for palms, I would say you kind of want to be using them, like once you hit 3, for just a normal clear run, like not scoring, not doing anything. For most of the run, that's kind of going to be our standard operating procedure. Like once a palm hits 3, we're just going to use it. So our strength just hit 3. So what I want to do is I'm going to use that strength, but I'm going to get myself close to the exit. I don't want to pop it immediately because, you know, I'm going to lose however many seconds of strength that I could be applying towards actually killing enemies. So this is a good technique here. When you're on the exit, use a palm, because, you know, the chances of you losing by like seconds is probably pretty small, but you never know. Sometimes things happen, and sometimes you just barely get your win by mere seconds on a floor set. So a good little trick is just to use a palm while you are zoning. There's another enervation, so that's kind of a good lesson here. Like to me, I was kind of playing this safe, but this is either just a straight up corner trap, or more likely a lot of these traps are just right off the wall. So this is kind of a good habit to learn here, to like hug as tight as possible. Again, at this point, there's not really a lot of risk of doing that, but it's just something to be aware of for the future, because that will start being more important. I'm going to pull with feint here so that I actually don't step on another trap. But that's a very good habit to get into, and I'll mention when it's kind of more important than other times. Here it's not really a big deal. The floors are like relatively big, especially for like the enemy density, so it's like, you know, I can step on a trap and I have time to react and adjust to it, versus stepping on a trap and then, you know, aggroing the enemy at the same time or whatever. And if I got alluring here, it also wouldn't really be a big deal, so I'm being a little careless here, but it is something that once we start getting a little bit higher up, we will start being more mindful of it. Okay, we almost have throwing daggers. As soon as... Let's see. Is there a respawn? There probably is one, but it's probably behind that pillar back there. Oh, there's one right here. Sorry, and I was saying, as soon as we get throwing daggers, we really get to stop worrying about traps for the most part. Let's see, we can ignore that. So maybe right now you're like, hey, you said we were going to use our palms once they got to 3. And my sight is at 3. But that's kind of one of those where I like to use sight for specific purposes. Obviously, if you get an overcap, you're going to use it. But typically for me, you know, if you're trying to just, you know, get that first clear, what I would recommend is we're going to use sights more strategically. On the early floors, we're going to use them to basically help us speed up a lot. And then on the later floors, we are maybe going to kind of be using them for the same purpose, but you can use them for landmines, which seems like it would be scary, but Ninja's actually pretty safe on it. And I won't do it a lot, but I might do it just a few times just to showcase it's actually pretty manageable on Ninja because of Shukuchi. And you also have Shade Shift just kind of as a backup in case you mess it up. Because a landmine will do 80% of your current HP. So if you throw Shade Shift on top, then a landmine, you know, is much safer. Landmines already are... It is technically possible to die to a landmine. There are some weird things that can happen, but it probably will never happen to you. One of those things that will probably happen if you do a ton of deep dungeon, but for the most part, no one's going to die to a landmine. So throwing a shield up on top of executing a landmine is just another layer of safety. And Ninja does have the benefit where if you Shukuchi over a landmine correctly, you'll just take 0 damage. So you're able to get all of the benefit of using a landmine to hurt an enemy, and you will not take any damage from it. So, which is one of the many reasons why we're doing this run here, to show that Ninja has a lot of strengths, particularly for deep dungeon and being able to handle all these mobs. And, you know, there are parts of its kit that maybe shine in Raid, but we'll definitely get to see more applications in Deep Dungeon. And why, in my opinion, it's quite underrated for a job to get Necromancer on. You're normally going to hear Machinist, you're going to hear Warrior, you're going to hear Picto, but no one really talks about Ninja. But I think its kit is uniquely, you know, suited for Deep Dungeon. So, oh, we're gonna go get that respawn. Just saw it appear right in this back room. And that's, oh, there's 2 actually. So that works out for us pretty well. We'll wait for that. Guess I could have thrown a dagger, but it's whatever. We're in no time rush here. I could be using Mug, but things die so quickly. Just, I don't know, it doesn't even really feel like worth pressing it. It does actually get you extra potions, if you were wondering. It does have that, you know, kind of flavor ability text on it, where increases the chance of additional items being dropped by target if Mug is dealt before or as the finishing blow. That will get you more potions, so if you want to min-max those, go ahead and try to use Mug. Okay, so we're on floor 8, and we're only level 17, which means we're just going to hang out here for a little bit until we reach level 20. And I do really recommend doing this. If you're climbing, this might seem like the last thing that you want to do, Because you're thinking, hey, I just want to get, you know, to the late floors. I just want to, you know, climb. I want to get to my spot. But going fast on the early floors, especially if you don't have a ton of experience, I would say is maybe the easiest way just to find yourself back at floor 1. You start cutting corners, you start making mistakes. In these early floors, you might be under-leveled for some fights. And that does matter because you'll take more damage, you don't do a lot of damage, and on top of that, you can actually, there is accuracy in this content. You'll rarely see it. I mean, you'll see it when you get like a blind enchantment. But there is accuracy. So if you are a much lower level, or just even a few levels, than an enemy you are trying to fight, you have a higher chance of missing it. So definitely something to be aware of. So this is a landmine. Recognize this one, learn this one, memorize this one. This is a shape that you definitely want to know, especially on Ninja. I can't showcase the tech yet because we don't get Shukuchi until level 40, but this is definitely a trap shape that you definitely want to memorize because you will be using these. We'll see if we can go find any other ones. We're going to be here for just a tiny bit longer. This, I'll just step on it just so you see. It's not a big deal. This is the pacification, or I guess impeding trap. It gives you pacification, so unable to use weapon skills, and then silence, so you can't cast. The interesting thing about this on Ninja is that if you have echo drops, which I do here, you could use it to get rid of the silence, and then you could use your mudras. Obviously, I can't do it now because we're not level, 30? Yeah, we're not level 30 yet. But you could do that. I will say I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that. And the only reason why is echo drops, for whatever reason, share the same recast timer as your sustaining potion. Like the same slot. So sustaining is 15 seconds. But an echo drop is 1 minute. So if you use an echo drop because you're like, hey, I'd like to use my mudras, you have locked yourself out of sustaining potions for 1 minute, which could be bad. So even though you can do it, I don't necessarily recommend doing it. Okay. We're level 19. I guess I can step on the landmine just to show you. So here we are. We'll maybe just barely see it. If you take a look at my health bar up here, I go to 30. So 70%. Actually, it should be 80. I wonder if I automatically got a tick, because I'm pretty sure it's 80%. But either way, good chunk of damage. And we will be doing all of that damage to our enemies when we utilize Shukuchi. And we're going to take none of it if we do it correctly. And then we can just throw Shade Shift right on top just to take less. I could prove that though, I guess. So if we take a look here, I throw Shade Shift on top. There I am at 40%. So I've got more HP. Just a little bit safer, just in case when you're doing your Shukuchi landmines, you've got a little bit of a safety net there. Which is good because one of the main tools that melee DPS are using to stay alive in Deep Dungeon is Bloodbath. But notice the text there. It says, converts a portion of physical damage dealt into HP. And that is important because most of Ninja's damage, you know, the highest hitting attacks you have, a lot of your damage is coming from magic damage. So Bloodbath is a little interesting on Ninja. Technically, Fuma Shuriken is physical. So if you find yourself in a spot where you need that little extra bit of HP, you could Fuma Shuriken instead of Raiton. But really what, you know, you really would prefer just to use Raiton, right? But maybe that Fuma Shuriken could save your life. But yeah, all of, you know, Raiton, Katon, all the stuff that you're going to be using to do damage does not convert its damage into HP back for you from Bloodbath, which is unfortunate, but it's just how it goes. However, the benefit of Ninja is you're doing a lot of ranged damage. So even though your Bloodbath is not as good, you are going to be taking relatively less damage compared to other melee DPS because you're doing a lot of your damage from range. So even though your Bloodbath isn't as good, you're probably taking less hits overall. Okay, we'll get this Yarzon. I know I said we'll get to level 20, but we'll get this Yarzon here, and then I think we'll go. We'll definitely hit level 20 on the next floor. We'll sprint. And 20 is all we really need for this boss. You could do it at 19, but it's just a safety net. And it also helps starting the next floor set being a little bit higher level. As long as you can kind of keep up on the levels and the XP each set, you're going to have a nicer time on the next set. Obviously until you hit level 60, and at that point you'll see me play a lot differently than I am right now. Right now we're going a little bit slow, methodical, checking all the rooms, looking for enemies, but when we get to level 60, we don't care about that at all, so we're just gonna fly through and, you know, get off as quickly as we can. Is this a treasure room? It is. That's hilarious. I could have just zoned in here instead of waiting for enemies. Well, there's no way you're gonna know if you're getting a treasure room or not, so I don't regret it. So treasure rooms, if you don't know, in Deep Dungeon, there is a chance for any room to be filled with, I think the number of monsters in a treasure room will change depending on what set you're on. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's true. Yeah, it must be, because there could be way more enemies in this. But anyway, basically, the surefire way of spotting a treasure room is, one, there's going to be more monsters in it. I probably should have used the fortune before. Oh well. There's going to be more monsters, and no way. It's going to be all fortune. More monsters, and there will be 4 chests in the room. So that's another way to know it's a treasure room. They will be different levels of treacherous for us, depending on what floor and what we have going, but typically not going to really be a big deal, especially this is a Ninja exclusive. But hide is something that is going to be very useful for us later for treasure rooms, because the great thing about hide is that yes, it will help us avoid sound type aggro enemies, but it also has the bonus of sight. So the only enemy that can detect you while you're in hide are proximity enemies, which is really good. On the later sets of Palace, like kind of towards the very end, a lot of the enemies are proximity, so we kind of lose a little bit of that privilege. But for the most part, sight is good. Being able to avoid sight aggro is going to be very helpful. So it's another unique tool for Ninja that I think gives it a pretty good edge over other jobs in trying to get Necromancer, because you can just avoid fighting a lot of different enemies that other jobs might have to fight, just because you don't have to worry about getting the aggro on them, which, let me tell you, for Anzus on the 170 set, or the Flood Dragons in the 180s, that's a pretty big advantage, so it's definitely something to not underestimate. Okay, first boss. It's not too bad. Definitely recommend having a strength on. Again, we have steals. We have 3 steals right now. If you are not comfortable yet playing a melee DPS, just use that steal. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. You don't need it yet. It's just for your own, you know, your own comfort, however you feel fighting the boss. I'm not going to use it because I know I'm just going to kill this so quickly it doesn't matter. But hey, maybe you have less Aether Pool. Maybe you're not comfortable with this. We're going to do a little trick here. So I used Feint plus Shade Shift there, so I took less damage from the Arrow Blast. And if you take 0 damage from your shield, we just don't take that dot. So saves us a lot of damage there. And that will pay off for us later as well. So I just want to bring it up here, expose that tech, and then we will be using that later. So that is 1 to 10. I will see you on the next set.